Joining me right now to discuss all of this is Democratic Representative Glenn Ivey from Maryland's 4th District. Thank you so much, Glenn, for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
So I know that you've been on the show before. Obviously, this is a situation where people put the partisan bickering aside, but I know you are particularly someone who can speak to this and the other recent incident of an attempted assassination from just 2 months ago. Crazy. It was 9 weeks ago. We were here reporting live as it happened. You're on the task force investigating what happened, the failures that happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. In light of what you know, seeing this, what came to your mind? What are you thinking?
Well, my first thought was, thank God the president, former president, is safe. It sounds like things went, about as well as they could from the standpoint of the Secret Service protection, the early detection of the potential assailant. And as the summary you just gave, I think sounds like things have gone in the right direction. Beyond that, some of us on the Joint Task Force have been in communications with each other. The chairman of the Joint Task Force, who's a Republican, and the ranking member, who's a Democrat, will be issuing a joint statement. But I think that shows, again, that the Joint Task Force is working in a bipartisan way, and certainly, well, really in a nonpartisan way. This is beyond politics at this point. We just need to make sure that things are going well, that the Secret Service is protecting our elected officials and any spectators of public events. And also that, the FBI is moving forward with the criminal investigation. It looks like in a very aggressive and accelerated manner.
I love what you said there, that it's beyond bipartisan. This is nonpartisan. No one would wish an assassination on their worst enemy who's of clear mind, whether they're a member of their own party or another one. It's unconscionable to think this happened in America within 9 weeks. I have to ask the question, especially as you are seeing details that the American people don't know yet about what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. We understand the protocol that people who are former presidents or former congressmen or former anything don't have the same level of security as a sitting president. That makes logical sense. But in light of this particular situation where you have a president of the United States who was fired upon, where a member of an audience, an innocent civilian, was killed, where you have other members of the crowd who were seriously injured, and thank God their lives were saved, can there not be an adjustment? Because I'm glad, I think everybody's glad that this wasn't worse today, but the fact that the whole perimeter wasn't surrounded, doesn't it make sense to make an exception for somebody who may be arguably one of the most famous people on the planet?
Well, I hope I'm not speaking out of school here, but an adjustment has been made. We were briefed actually on Friday by the acting director of the Secret Service. And on the order of President Biden, there's been increased protection detail for former President Trump, Vice President Harris, and some others. So that's in the works already. And I believe that may be why things worked out the way they did today. So. But again, I don't have all the details. In fact, you and I have about the same amount of details right now based on the briefing that we just heard from local law enforcement. And I think FBI participated in that as well. We'll get more of the details, but the point's well taken. I think the Secret Service recognized that there was going to be a need for enhanced protection. President Biden recognized that as well. I think at the end of this, what we're going to have to figure out, we being Congress, is how to get more resources to the Secret Service so they can get more personnel, so they can cover more of these events, especially during a presidential cycle when you have officials, Republican, Democratic presidential nominees, and you might have some from other parties too, that are also running. We're gonna have to find a way to get more bodies out there who are trained and able and capable of doing this kind of work in a way that the United States can rely on and meets the high standards of what we expect from the Secret Service.
Yes, we certainly don't need a hiring issue in the positions of Secret Service. No, that can't be allowed. But I wanted to ask you, before we let you go, about this task force. One of your colleagues, Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, said that when Americans hear what happened, the security failures by the Secret Service and Department of Homeland Security on July 13th and that assassination attempt, that they would be appalled. Is there anything that you can express in terms of what you've felt since learning about some of those same details?
Yeah, I think Senator Blumenthal hit the nail on the head. And I think the acting director who came and testified before the Senate, I think, shortly after July 13th, maybe 7 or 8 days later, I think he acknowledged that publicly as well. So I think we all understand that there are dramatic failures that were made there that could have had tragic consequences for former President Trump, that did have tragic consequences for one of the spectators there, and also led to serious injuries for 2 others. So we know we can't have another day like that. The United States has to meet a higher standard. The Secret Service has to meet a higher standard. Our democracy demands that, and this task force is going to work to make sure that we get that.
Well, I am going to remind others who I speak to about your words about working in a nonpartisan way. I think that is brilliant. I hope that it's sad that this is how we end up having a conversation like this and using that terminology because of an assassination attempt or 2. But I appreciate your efforts and your integrity in speaking that way about this situation. And I'm sure all of the American people would say thank you. Representative Glenn Ivey, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.